Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. I know there are a lot of other things out here, so I can't tell you how much I appreciate your coming to see this talk. And as you can see, the title of the talk is Justice, Truth, and Free Will in the Age of AI. Now, that song we pulled off Spotify, or as they call it in Hungary, Spotify. Raise your hand if you use Spotify. Okay. So I have a question for you. Need the mic. But I'll repeat the question. Just, do you like it when those recommendations pop up? That's the price of getting the t-shirt or the Frisbee or whatever. So you like that?
Yeah.
What part of it do you like?
It means you can discover music that's kind of similar to stuff you've listened to.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And you're okay with the fact that it's gathering, obviously, data on you about your likes and dislikes?
I mean, it's a bit scary. It feels like you're being stalked. But
Yeah. It's a mix, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today, and we got to continue to think about. We think of AI as a modern thing, but I would take a minute to go back to this guy named Aristotle. Okay? You may have heard of him, the toga, the Lyceum, teacher of Alexander the Great. I mean, who knew? Teacher of Alexander the Great. Yes, he was. And he said, now I'll change this a bit. Each person judges well the things that person knows. And of these, that person is a good judge. The person, the human being, is making the judgment. The person, the human being, is making the judgment. Now, there are a couple concepts that I want you to think about, because we hear this word AI, artificial intelligence, all the time. And, it's not that easy to think about what it really means. But in my view, if you want to look at it in a straightforward matter, it's a complex software system that is receiving massive amount of data to make predictions and recommendations. So that's a good way to focus on this, predictions and recommendations. But they've been predicting the weather for a long, long time, making other predictions for a long time. What is the difference between that and where we are now? Well, there are basically four key factors in my world, four key technological developments that have come together to create this environment that we're in now. One is the advent of what's called this cloud computing, where you can hire a company to store and manage your data in servers all over the world. The second is the so-called Internet of Things, where there are sensors now everywhere that are generating tons of data. And then this big data that is being generated by those sensors is being utilized in these AI systems that utilize this massive amount of data to create these predictions and recommendations. Now, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to go back. I was talking about Aristotle. I'd ask you to go even back a little bit further. Any of you been to Greece? Anybody been to Greece here? What was your favorite thing about being in Greece?
The beaches?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. My one son is at a Greek beach right now. He said, Daddy, I'd love to come to your talk, but I want to go with the Greek beach with my girlfriend instead. I mean, what could I say? There was another hand up here who's been to Greece. Yeah? Go ahead.
The Ouzo.
That's right. And what is your name?
Fanny.
Yeah, and where are you from?
Hungary.
And what is your last name?
Karanic.
Wait, you're not that funny Karadi, that amazing dentist, are you? Oh my God, that's amazing that you're here today. That is just fantastic. Now, in Greece, there was the Oracle of Delphi. The Oracle of Delphi, 1400 BC, and she was one of the most powerful women in ancient Greece. In ancient Greece, people would go to her and she would make a prophecy, and that would pretty much be it. That was the prophecy of the Oracle of Delphi. Now, in the development of AI, we've had chess systems that can play very, very well for over 20, 30 years. But in the past, those were fed massive amounts of games to become very, very good. Here's the big difference between that and recently. There was a chess system that was developed, and it was simply given the rules of chess. I need you guys to get your mind around this, because this is really kind of brings it all together, at least for me. It was simply given the rules of chess, asked to play against itself, and in 3 days, it plays millions of games against itself, and in 3 days became better than the best chess players in the world. Okay? So that's what we're dealing with. And not only to become better and be able to win over the best chess players in the world, that is, develop that knowledge that took hundreds of years for we human beings, but it played in a way that we humans might describe as creatively. It would make moves. It would move its left rook up 4 squares, and even the great chess players would say, what the heck are they doing? And it would turn out that it would be a very good move. So it was actually playing in a new, quote-unquote, creative way, which you could argue makes it the oracle of chess. Anybody know who that's a picture of, by the way? Anybody know who that's a picture of? Yes, you know? Okay. It is Susan Polgar, one of the greatest chess players ever, Hungarian chess player of the Polgar sisters, whose father kept them at home instead of sending them to school, and they just played chess and became champions. I actually played her in a match. Okay, that sounds impressive, but wait for the rest of the story. It was a simultaneous match at the Hungarian embassy in Washington, D.C. She was playing 12 people against us, but I bravely stood in there. The ambassador was also playing, and he fell out. So I thought, okay, I won't look like a complete idiot because the ambassador already got beat. And I was actually the last survivor. That sounds good. Okay, I'll take the applause. Thank you, I'll take the applause. But I have to be honest with you. We have a mutual friend, and I have a feeling she was just toying with me like a cat and a mouse. Now, the game of Go. The game of Go originated in China. Simple grid, black and white stones. Essentially, you try to just surround the other person. Somebody knows Go. I heard that out there. Yeah. The game of Go has so many permutations. It has more permutations than the number of atoms in the known universe. Okay? What has happened? A system has been developed through machine learning that can beat champion Go players. In fact, the best Go player in the world, an incredible gentleman from Korea, played the Go system, the Go AI system, and it's very dramatic. When he realized he was losing, he realized in the game he had lost, and a single tear, you can see it coming down his left cheek, because he knew that the world would never be the same. Now, this world that we're living in now, Alan Turing, I think generally considered the greatest logician since Aristotle. he put together something super interesting called the Turing test. The Turing test. The Turing test he put together in 1950. And when you think about, you guys mind if we do a quick selfie? Okay? All right. Good. All right. Thank you. Thank you. He put together the Turing test in 1950, 70 years ago. He wrote this article called Can Machines Think, where he said, before I get into it, anybody ever used a chat bot online? Okay, a chat, you ask questions. Okay. Does anybody care if that's a human or a bot that you're chatting with? Why do you care?
I think I care because originally they weren't very good at answering your question, but they actually got better. But I just get impatient with them not answering the question I need them to answer.
You ask a question, you just throw up a bunch of links or something like that. Yeah. By the way, it's more my curiosity. I always write it and say, "Are you a human being?" So, because I assume neither one could lie to me. Alan Turing said, we're getting to this point, perhaps in the future, where people aren't going to be able to tell. And what he did was he said, we're going to put perhaps this fine lady in one room. Don't worry, don't have to do anything. We're going to put a computer in another room, and we're going to put a third party in this room. And people can't see each other. And you don't know which room has the computer in it and which room has the human being in it. And then you're going to ask questions, written questions, so you can't tell by a voice, and you're going to get responses, can be different questions, whatever you want. What's the best concert at Seagate Festival? We all know this is the best stage, right? Think for tomorrow. But what Turing said, that within 50 years, so he wrote this in 1950, we're talking 2000, it would become pretty darn difficult after 5 minutes of questioning to tell which one was the computer and which one was the human being. So you think about this, he wrote that back in 1950. That is essentially what is now known as the Turing test. Now, I would like to turn, we talked a little about Aristotle. I would like to turn to another famous writer, Taylor Swift. Okay, I have a question. Do we have any Swifties in the audience? Yes. Yes, I am a certified Swiftie. I have to admit it. I got tickets for 2024. Have you gotten tickets yet? Yes. Austria, it was a major operation. We signed up for Warsaw and Vienna and Munich. Got Austria. Really looking forward to it. Well, Taylor, as you know, from The Archer, I'm sure you know this quote from The Archer from the Lover album. She said, "Cause all of my enemies started out as friends." Well, we know Taylor's very prophetic, and she wrote this. And I was thinking about that quote, and I'm thinking, because you always have to interpret Taylor's music. She never says all these things about her later, it's breakup and all that. But maybe she was actually talking about AI, that AI starts out as your friend, but has the potential, if you're not careful, to become your enemy. Okay? Now I want to prove that I wasn't just making this up about it being a certified Swiftie. So there I am with my daughter Isabel, okay? We did a father-daughter road trip down to Miami to the Hard Rock Stadium for a Reputation tour. Now, what I would like to do next as you think about these growing power of AI and the strength is you have to start thinking about the ethical issues involved in what these systems are creating. Okay, so I'm going to point to a couple people. I'm going to give you a number. All you have to do is remember your number. Just remember your number. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? And what I would like to do now, who has number 2? Who has number 2? Okay, number 2. Why don't you both come up? Why don't you both come up? All right. Who had number 4? You can just get them on the stage. We need 4. You know what? Do you mind coming up too? You two? Can you jump up? All right. This is good. This is good. Okay, you stand right here. You stand right here. You stand there. You 3 just stand right here and face the audience. You can face the audience. Turn around. You know what? Go down here a little bit. Go down here a little bit. That's, yeah, right here where I am, you guys. All right, that's good. This is good. This is good. All right, so I want to go back for a bit. So long, Taylor. See ya, August 2024. You know, people are telling me you got to calm down. It's going to be a cruel summer. Waiting through next summer till we jump in our getaway car and go for our champagne dreams. That's all Swiftie code, by the way, guys. All right. So I want to go back to this thing that is called the runaway streetcar. The runaway streetcar. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is we have a streetcar that has lost its brakes. Not good. Not good. This is the streetcar. You stand here. You guys stand here in a line. All right. The streetcar is coming down the track. It's coming down the track. You are all innocent bystanders, including, what is your name?
Elisa.
Elisa, where are you from?
London.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, thank you. The streetcar's coming down the track, okay? Running its brake. You're an innocent bystander, but you know what a switch does like this. You have a choice to make, Elisa. You can do nothing. You're just an innocent bystander. You can do nothing and let the streetcar, sorry guys, plow over the 4 of you. Too bad, so sad. Maybe that's what you'd be thinking. Too bad, so sad. Or, Elise, right? Elise. Or, Elise, you can say, I'm going to pull this switch, and the streetcar, therefore, will take out, what is your name?
Jerome.
Will take out poor innocent Jerome, who's never done a bad thing in his life. He is innocent. He's practically a saint. Okay? And we'll take out Jerome. So the question is, Elise, what do you do?
Oh, it's a hard one. I feel like I would.
All right, wait a minute. Let me ask the audience. Audience, who thinks you should take out all 4? Raise your hand. Okay. Yeah, and probably, yeah. All right, and who thinks you should take out poor Jerome? Okay, but do not let that impact your vote. You know, we are free thinkers here at Seagate Festival, so please, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I'd change it to hit. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so my question is, when you've taken out Jerome, it sounds like you two know each other. What do you tell this lady afterwards about why you made that decision?
I don't know. I feel like it's less impactful than like a big, group of families. I don't know.
Right. Okay. So my question would be, if it wasn't Jerome, but it was a 6-month-old baby. No offense, Jerome, but I don't think you're 6. Would that impact your decision?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. Good. Well, these are the kind of issues that self-driving cars are facing because these systems can be set up in advance. So when we're in an accident, God forbid, I think most of it just sort of react. But these systems have to think about these things ahead of time, which makes it very, very difficult. So, guys, give all these folks a hand, and please sit down. Thank you. Sorry, Jerome. Thank you very much. So those are some of the things that really need to be thought through. And remember, Taylor said, because all my enemies started out as friends, and I want you to think about in the context of the growing use of these systems that make predictions, make recommendations for something like something like applying to a school or applying for a job. Well, how would we feel if these systems take your school application, take your job application, and basically decide who's going to be admitted, who's going to not, without any human interaction at all? I'm sorry? Go ahead.
They do it nowadays because the firms, the companies could program the IE and that deny the people with false notes and yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting point. Thank you very much for making that. This is already happening to a certain degree. As an aside, by the way, once I did this job interview with a robot. I don't know if any of you guys have did that. That was absolutely horrible. They flash a question on the screen and you have to answer it into your computer for 30 seconds. But, so these systems are already doing this amount of filtering. Now the question is there any human involvement at all? Is there any human making the final decision at all in this process? And even if there is a human involved, how involved is that human being? Are they just sitting there, not really paying attention and kind of half watching Game of Thrones or Fate the Winx Saga or whatever is the latest thing and not really paying attention, going, yeah, well, AI knows better than me or not? And I think that's one of the areas that is getting really tricky, where what used to be a friend might start to become an enemy if we're not careful, to quote Taylor, and I feel I can call her Taylor. I mean, we're kind of close, you know. Now, in the justice area, picture this. You have somebody who's been put in jail for, God forbid, robbing a bank. Anybody? We have people here from Hungary, right? Fanny, you're from Hungary. You know the whiskey robber, the whiskey robber. He would chug like a bottle of Jack Daniels and go in and rob a bank. So, and he'd be known as the risky robber. Well, he got caught, he's in jail, but he was actually very good in jail, good behavior. And so he was granted parole, means he, instead of staying in jail for 20 years, he got out in 10 years. So what would happen if the judge who has to weigh this, make this decision, well, the sentence was 20 years, but he's been good in jail, if this is all this data, not only on the whiskey robber, but on other factors are put into the system, and the AI system makes a recommendation to the judge as to whether the whiskey robber should be let out early. And the AI system says, no, he needs to stay in there for his original 20 years. And the judge says, and you would have to be a strong judge to do this, no, I am not going to agree with the AI system. I don't care. I am the judge here. I'm going to let him out. Well, you have the human oversight, and the good thing there is you had a judge that was strong enough to trust the judge's instincts over the instincts of the AI system. But then what happens if the whiskey robber is let out early, per the judge, and goes out and immediately robs another bank? That poor judge people are going to point at him and say, why didn't you abide by this AI system? Who do you think you are? So it becomes very difficult, and to your point on job applications and such, to a certain extent, these systems are also making their way into the justice system. Now let's talk about money. You guys all know Walter White, right? Walter White. But let's not talk about Walter White. You're just applying for a loan, and the AI system is analyzing you and a bunch of other factors to decide whether to give you the loan or not. How do we feel about that? Should there be any human oversight there? By the way, to a certain extent, this is already happening with people's credit scores and that kind of thing. But it could be happening more and more. So you could end up with the oracle of school admissions, the oracle of job admissions, the oracle of justice, and potentially the oracle of money as well. Now, let's talk about chatbots. All right, we're going to do a closed eye vote here, guys. So you got to vote on your own. You can't peek as to how everybody is voting. And here's the question, and I'm going to ask you to raise your hands, whether you guys too, okay, you guys can't get out of this, all right? You have to pay attention. You guys too back there, okay? Now, here's the question. Would you care, let's say you're calling, let's say your bank again to complain about something. Would you care if in the background, without telling you, the bank is using emotion reading AI to try to judge your emotions based on your voice patterns, the word you use, the tone in your voice? So it's going to be two options. Don't do it yet. Raise your hands, yes, if you would care, or no if you don't care. So, all right, everybody, first of all, you got to close your eyes tight here. All right, tight, sunglasses, that's good, that counts. You can just use the shades. All right, now, keep them closed. No peeking back there, guys. Okay, now, if you would care if the bank was running emotion reading AI in the background, raise your hand. Okay, everybody keep their eyes closed. I can neither confirm nor deny that anybody raised their hand, but if anybody did raise their hand, you can now lower it. Okay, now, if you would not care if the bank is using emotion reading AI in the background, raise your hand. All right, okay. Again, I can neither confirm nor deny anybody raised their hand, but if you did raise your hand, lower it. Thank you. Okay, you can open your eyes, guys. Thank you. All right, the people that would care, raise your hands again. Raise your hands again. Okay, why would you care?
I think that it's a question of how they're using that data, right? Is that going to affect my credit score? Is that going to affect whether they offer me a loan? I think that I don't necessarily trust them with that information. Yeah.
Thank you very much. What's your name?
Isabel.
Isabel. That's my daughter's name.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Where are you from?
UK.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. You hit on a number of great points. Thank you so much. I'll just touch on one of them, which is this notion of trust, of trusting the institution, of trusting the AI system that you're working with. Who else was in the yes, I would care about this category? Please go ahead.
I'm just curious what the purpose of the emotion reading would be. I'm calling with a query. I don't really need anyone to be trying to translate what I'm feeling. I just want help with the query. So
very, very good.
That would be my...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very, very good question. I'd give you my sense on that is if somebody is perhaps more agitated, they might be faster tracked to a certain location, right? The bank might argue this is an efficiency thing. They're actually trying to serve you better because they can tell you're really upset.
How is that fair on everyone else who is calling?
I never said it was fair. But it's a fair question, that's for sure. So, okay, now the other camp, the camp that would not care, raise your hands. Okay, please.
It's about honesty. If I'm honest, I have no... Basically, I want them to know that I'm honest. So basically, if they read my emotions, it's good and consistent.
That's very good. What is your name?
I guess.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very good. But there was some over... Yeah, go ahead.
I think this is the question of trust. How can you trust these services or not? But I really think that this is a price for your comfort. You need to share your data to be comfortable in the modern world, I think. But I don't know. This is a very tricky question, I think.
That's why I asked that. You know, they didn't invite me to ask easy questions. Thank you, though. Your answer was very perceptive. You touched on the trust point, but this other point of sharing your data is one that I think we're all thinking about, right? To use a MapAx, you have to share where you are. We get all these free options like free email, and I was thinking not too long ago, we do all these free things to share our data, right? But can you imagine 10 years ago if somebody came to you and said, I got great news. You will never have to pay a telephone bill again, but all you have to agree to is whenever you call someone, there's going to be this third person in the background listening to everything you say and taking notes because they want to sell you something later on, or they want to sell you to somebody else later on. Well, it's not a third party. It's not a person. It's not Aunt Elizabeth there taking the notes. It is a system. But that's basically the price that we're paying to have a map system and all these other systems that we operated. But when you put that in perspective, to me, it's quite interesting. Well, there were some other no's here. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so in general, humans are good reading emotions, right? So fundamentally, I don't feel a huge difference that a consultant reads my emotion and talks to his coworkers that are upset than a computer does to the database.
Thank you. What is your name?
I'm Viet.
Where are you from?
From Vietnam.
Cool. Thank you very much for that question. Yeah, I think if I can expand on that point a little bit, you're basically saying, well, why should it matter? If you're calling a human, they may be reading your emotions too, right? And maybe they fast track you anyway because it's a human and you would never yell at a human, but somebody else is yelling at the human because they're extremely upset, and then you get fast-tracked anyway. So there are arguments to be made that what is the problem with this? How is this really different from all these other ways that entities are soaking up background information background? One more no. There were a couple other no's there. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, either one of you or both of you, please.
This is Steph. Well, I think I agree with him. So humans should be able to track emotion faster. The problem is we all have this underlying fear. We have the fear of sharing our emotions because maybe at school, if we were shy, if we were like, oh, maybe the teacher will catch us, that we've got to do the homework. But this whole thing of fear, this can be really exploited. So if we are afraid that AI and stuff will exploit our emotion, there is something behind, so there is this problem. Once this is addressed, I think, let's say everyone here has no fear to share emotions. Probably we won't even use AI for that because we will get the result of that AI reading useless because we will do that ourselves better.
Fantastic, yeah, fantastic point. When does reading your emotion become reading your fear and exploiting that? What is your name?
Steph.
Steph, thanks. And you wanted to say something too. You both had your kind of go.
Yeah, so I think this will happen anyways, like they said. So this way we can correct the bias because it's program system and we as humans can make it repeatable and we can decide how to act on these readings. And you can argue for both cases that someone will fast forward, but also you can do it the other way. If you detect that these people are fast forward because they are aggressive, you can decide not to do that. So control the humans that would, because we want to avoid the conflict, sometimes aggressive people would get better treatment. So in this way you can avoid that. It's how we use it, no problem.
Name, just for fun?
Petra.
Petra. Where are you from? Croatia. And where are you from?
Italy.
Fantastic. My older son studying Italian. He loves it. And who doesn't love Croatia? I mean, who doesn't love Italy, too? God, you guys are great. You're hitting so many good points. We talked about trust. This sense of, well, what is it? How is this any different? I'm kind of right in the zone right now of it should be disclosed. But the problem is, what does it mean to be disclosed? It's another one of these long list of terms and conditions that, frankly, hardly anybody ever reads when you click on because you want to read the app. Or is it somehow where they're really in your face disclosing it to you, which might be kind of a shock. We are reading your emotions while you are talking to us. And this point of bias is a really, really critical one. Thank you for bringing it up. One of the other issues with these AI systems is the potential that the recommendation or the prediction that they make, hey, should we hire this person? Should we admit this person to the school? Is a biased recommendation, because you've got to remember these systems live on the data they are given. So if the data that they are given is skewed, then the recommendation can be skewed. So this is kind of a garbage in, garbage out scenario, and that runs the potential for there to be a bias involved. So what do we do where we are now? This obviously isn't going away, and I do have to emphasize the incredible potential of these systems because of the predictions and recommendations they can make. Think about augmenting agriculture. Think about protecting the environment. There are many healthcare. Hungary is actually a leader in the field of using AI in medical diagnostics, where a system is being fed massive amounts of example mammograms. The doctor makes the first decision, and if it's unfortunately positive, that's the end of it. But if it's a negative decision, it goes to an AI system for a backup check. And then if the AI system says, hey, maybe I see something there, it goes back to the doctor. So that's just one example of this machine learning vis-a-vis these massive amounts of data can be extremely, extremely helpful. But what do we do about these ethical issues? Nobody worry about it. Everybody, hey, let's just go for it. Do we create some laws? Is it somewhere in between? These are a number of points. Again, you guys are great because you hit so many of these. I think most of it would say we want a system that is fair, safe and reliable, private and secure, inclusive, accountable and transparent, which are mostly two words for the same thing. Meaning, remember that example I talked about in chess where they moved the rook up to, the system moved the rook up to the left and everybody's like, whoa, what was going on there? Ideally, you want a system where you can connect the dots back. You made a recommendation not to hire this person, not to admit them to the school. Well, why did you do that? But because of this machine learning, remember I said the chess was just given the rules and became better than the best chess players on the planet in 3 days by playing against itself. How do you get to that? So the chess system will explain, well, this is why I moved the rook up 3 to the left. This is this transparency and accountability and auditability question. So just an aside there, right? We know about these true or not true matters that are out there for us to look at. Now, I want to talk briefly. This is a CGAT Festival, guys, so don't worry. I'm not going to get into the weeds on any legal mumbo-jumbo, okay? And don't worry, just because I'm a lawyer, I'm not going to send you a bill, okay, for talking a little bit about the law today. But the European Union is, I think, one of the leaders in looking at this issue, and they have created a law on artificial intelligence. It's just in draft. It hasn't been enacted yet. But if it is enacted, it's moving along. If it is enacted, it will apply to every country in the EU, and even more, it will apply globally. Because if you were doing business in the EU, even if you were, operating out of New Zealand, if you were interfacing with the EU, you're going to have to deal with this law. So it's really, really interesting. And how they are doing it is they are doing it based on risk. They're saying we should not regulate Spotify the same way we might want to regulate a healthcare AI or the use of AI in education or for banks or that kind of thing. So they're taking a risk-based approach, and they're saying, in the grand scheme of things, how risky is the use of this AI? Well, Spotify, I think we probably would all say, no big deal, right? Then they have two other categories. One category is what they call high-risk stuff, which one might argue would include education, would include justice, would include finance. And then they have a third category, which is the prohibited matters. That is, period, end of story. You cannot use these things. A potential example of that would be real-time facial recognition where you're just walking around the street, right? You might say that's something that might be prohibited. So they are developing the laws, and this is how they are approaching this. And this could well have an effect on all of us. Another thing that they're trying to do with this law is to make it future-proof. What does that mean? What does that mean? You guys in the sound booth, you know what it means? Any idea? Future-proof? Martin, I bet you know.
I guess it means you should think of tomorrow and find a solution which works tomorrow as well.
Don't stop thinking about tomorrow. That was another song I could have had up here. Now, yeah, and thank you very much, Martin. And it means, in that context, that you don't want to enact a law that the technology is going to sped so far ahead that this law is going to be ridiculous because it's going to be totally outmoded, right? You think what's happened in the last 3 years, that's very hard to do, to make a technology law like this future-proof. But that's what they want to do. And then here's another important question. You don't want to overregulate and stifle innovation and invention, right? You don't want to choke people off so they can't lift their big toe without filing some piece of paper, right? And this is one of the, I'm a lawyer, I love the law. This beauty of the law is you have to weigh these things. It's not good or bad. It's weighing maybe two good things. And where do you put that balance in between those two good things? Keeping people safe, having systems that are reliable, that they're not taken advantage of, but not stifling innovation. Now, in this context, I would like to return, as one often does, to the ancient Greeks, okay? To the ancient Greeks. And I would like to return to Plato. Now, Plato, I loved his writings so much. It's like his dialogues, it's like reading plays. It's just amazing, just amazing. Well, in the Republic, which he wrote, he set forth what is called the allegory of the cave. The allegory of the cave. Now, I'm actually going to do an allegory of the cave, if you bear with me on that one. Now, the allegory of the cave basically said this. Most people are inside a cave. Their hands are tied behind them up against a wall. And they're sitting there in this cave, and they're looking up at this cave wall. And behind them are some people with sticks holding actual objects up. Could be a wheel, it could be a sword, things like that. And there's a fire. So the fire is casting the shadow of these real objects on the wall, but all of us are not seeing the real objects. We are only seeing the shadows on the wall. We are only seeing the shadows of the wall. And Plato, being a philosopher, he said, but the philosopher has escaped this somehow and can go up to the real world and see the real objects, the truth of what they are. The truth of what they are. And to me, an important question here that I think we all need to think about very carefully, and honestly have to say guard against, is will AI become today's Oracle of Delphi? That is, will we go there and say, all-trusting, all-knowing AI, tell me what to do, tell me what you think, and what to think, and I will do that without questioning it because you are so much more knowledgeable than I am. And I think that is the risk. Quick quote from, anybody seen the movie 2001 Space Odyssey? Raise your hand. All right, the HAL 9000 computer takes over the ship, and he's being unplugged, and HAL 9000 says, I know I've made some very poor decisions recently, but I can give you my complete assurance that my work will be back to normal. I've still got the greatest enthusiasm and confidence in the mission as he's being unplugged. And by the way, as he's being unplugged, I recommend the movie, definitely. As he's being unplugged, he starts to regress into a childlike state and sing, Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer, Blue. And he also says where he was born, and this is the key highlight moment of the film. He says he was born in Urbana, Illinois. Now, why is that the highlight? Because that's where I was born and grew up, okay? So that is the peak moment in the film. Now, János von Neumann, the amazing Hungarian, not only mathematician, but many, many other things, absolutely amazingly brilliant. He wrote a book back in the 1950s called The Computer and the Brain, looking at those relationships. And János von Neumann said, which I think is something that is useful for us all to keep in mind, said, the human brain is, after all, the best example we have of an intelligent system, the best example we have of an intelligent system. And to me, part of what that means is to not just accept everything that is served up to you about these predictions and recommendations, but question them. That's number one. And number two, to also remember that you have the power to shape what's going to go on here as well. Okay? Some of you may be in a position to kind of do that formally, legislatively, but others may not be able to do that, but you all still have the power to do that in a one way or another and question those systems that exist. And I would like to turn to finally my last quote of the day, the late great Stan Lee, right? What was the scene? Uncle Ben is talking to Peter in the car, okay? And what does he say? Peter Parker, you know, Spider-Man dude. And what does he say to Peter? He says, Peter, remember. We got a lot of good quotes here, right? Aristotle, Taylor Swift, János von Neumann, Stan Lee. Peter says, Peter, with great power comes great responsibility. Okay? And that is so true. But that's not a power in the sense of what we all think about it, as, you know, these powerful people. That's a power that is in each one of you to help mold the situation. Guard against these questions, but also help mold against this situation as well. So it's really up to all of you. And remember, here on Seagate Island, and also out there in the world as well, as I tell my good friend Martin, we are all family. Thank you very much, and thank you, Milestone Institute, for the invitation today. I really appreciate it.